Hello there, welcome back, and welcome to part 79 in my build log series of the Trumpeter 1 to 200 scale model of the Titanic. Scotland have won the Calcutta Cup again, so it's a happy day, and today, or rather this week just gone, I have been finishing off all the remaining railings on the ship. So all of the railings on the top of the deck houses, actually that was about it to be honest, but these are all dastardly fiddly little things, so it's taken quite a lot of time, but I'm really happy with them because a bit like the stairs, you know, they give you a nice scale. You know, everyone knows a railing's about this high, so it gives you an idea of the scale of the ship, and they look so ornate and delicate, you know, it really adds to the detail on the model. So we'll be showing the rest of that today. Without any further ado, let's crack on. Right, I'll try to film this for you, the next railing to go on the engine casing, and here it is, and I've just dropped it for good measure. Now the first thing I'm going to do is I hope you can see this on the camera. I'm just going to sort of work out the midpoint on this railing, because that's the point that I want to put right here. This railing goes all the way along, and along here, but not on this side, for obvious reasons, because of course you've got the pipework there. So let's do a bit of measuring. So we're on about 160 mil. 160 mil, well, it's actually 159, so that's 89.7, sorry, 79.7, so that's about here. So I'm going to call this point here the middle. Now, I'm going to mark that in a way that's hopefully fairly subtle. Okay, so I've just put a little blob of felt tip on that central rung, just so I'm aware where the middle of the thing is. The other thing just to be aware of is that these do have an up and down. The bit that the top of the railing has a ball which sort of sits above and below the height of the actual rail itself, and that just sort of signifies the joints where the railings meet the upstands. So do just be a wee bit careful to make sure you get them oriented correctly. Now, these railings are a lot more easily damaged than others on the model because there's just not a lot of actual metal on them. You know, they don't have 3 rungs to them, they've only got 2. So they are actually quite vulnerable. Now, I've just attached these awning lines. Here they are. And it took me a while to find out what they were there for. So they go on both sides of funnel number 1 from the aft vent for the stokehold all the way to the very aft point of the bridge. And initially I thought maybe these are here as a sort of secondary barrier, because unlike the other 3 funnel bases, the first funnel base, there's actually a bit more reason for crew to be on this platform. You know, you've got collapsibles A and B, and there's a few other bits of equipment. So I wondered if there were maybe additional protection against people treading on what you possibly call the engineering space, the bit painted in grey with all the vents and so on. But I don't actually think that's the case in the end. Apparently, according to Titanic, a model maker's guide, or a model maker's manual, I should say, sorry, which incidentally is a very good book, and if you're building a model of the Titanic, it is invaluable. But according to that book, these were actually there, and they're on both sides of the funnel. They're actually there to support a canvas cover over the area, presumably to protect it from the sun, but I'm not entirely sure why you'd have a canvas cover there. But you know, if you've got someone up there doing compass readings or whatever, possibly there's a reason to protect yourself from the sun. I'm not sure, but anyway, that's what these were for. Now at the moment I don't think they're quite painted correctly, because my understanding of these are that they were metal upstands on the real ship, metal upstands with then a fairly taut sort of line stretched between them. So what I need to do now is I need to paint this long section in a sort of greyish kind of colour, the same colour in fact as here, or down at the base of the fourth funnel, the first funnel, just to give the impression that it's a different material, because I think this would have been a taut line supported by these metal upstands. So that's the next little job. And then we have only one set of railings to go, and that is of course the railings along the officers' quarters deckhouse. So here we go, just painting with a very fine brush, and just trying to pick out all of the taut line, but miss of course the white stanchions that support it. I'm also just making another change here on the bridge. I wasn't happy with those last 3 windows position. They were slightly off centre, and it just didn't look very good. So what I've done is I've removed them, and I shall now fit them again. In other news, another thing that I've done is I have fitted the pipe which goes from number 1 funnel into the water tank. This is a bit of brass piping that I've used, and it was a technique that was shown to me by Midwest Models, so thank you very much to them. Now, it probably won't have escaped a few people's notice that I haven't done the boat deck's end rails. I've done B deck and I've done A deck, but I've not yet got round to doing the boat deck. And the reason for that is because I was a little bit concerned about it, because of course these 2 decks are the original Trumpeter plastic castings. This deck, for those of you who remember, is actually a piece that I made by myself. It's just a much thinner piece of plastic that I cut out, and I measured it fairly accurately, and of course, as we see down the length, it's pretty damn accurate. It's certainly not bad. But when we come to railings, particularly railings that have these quite thick and quite precise end pieces on them, I'm just a little bit worried that, even if I'm a millimetre out, that will look pretty bad. So I've left it now, really just out of fear of it not working out. If it doesn't work out, what I think I'll have to do is make cuts in this and either add or subtract material to make it fit, because I think that'll be the only real way of doing it. I don't think there's much stock in changing the shape of the deck. But we'll see. This may not turn out to be an issue at all, and it may end up that I'm actually able to measure things precisely. It also might not end up like that. So what I'll do is I'll cut this section out and we'll see. Right, here we go. And as you can see, it's pretty good. The corners have a little excess, so we can sand that down with a small file. Same on the other side. And in some respects, that's actually quite good, because if errors are mirrored on both sides of the railing, that perhaps shows that I've cut it relatively accurately. So maybe I am a metallic-eyed small munitions man after all. So what I'll now do is I'll cut out the actual railing that goes underneath this balustrade, bend it, attach it, and then we will work from there. So here we go, it's in, and it does look actually pretty good now. Obviously you can still see some black plastic, so I will need to go over that with a white bit of paint, but nothing that can't be achieved quite easily. And yes, you can see over here particularly, I did actually have to remove probably about 1 millimetre of material just to make the deck flush up against the railing. But that wasn't really a problem. I just used some side cutters in the end and it actually went pretty smoothly. So there we go, the last of the aft railings. And it looks rather nice, just sort of bookends the deck quite nicely. Right, here we are, more boat deck railings in, and we've got the very forward stuff, the sort of cover section where collapsible would have been, and then we've got the next section down here. Now, I'm not filming a lot of this because I've done a lot of railings already, and it is actually a lot easier to do it when you're not filming because you're a lot less restricted with where you can put your hands and stuff. But there's a few things I want to point out. Firstly, you can see that the small joint in the railing does line up very, very nicely with the expansion joint. And that is as it should be, but it's one of those things that doesn't always come off when you're making a model. Sometimes, you know, even 1 millimetre would actually kind of ruin the effect a bit. And on this occasion, it actually has come off quite nicely, so I'm happy about that. So we've got a fair few railings left to go. We've got all of this stuff duplicated on the other side, and then we've also got all of this stuff moving back out to funnel number 2. But of course the consolation is once they're done, that is all of the railings except for the dividing sections on the boat deck, separating off the officers' area from first class, engineers, so on and so on. So not much left to go. Right, there we have it. That is it for railings. As I say though, the only exception to that statement, of course, are the railings that separate off the different areas on the boat deck. So there we go. She's starting to look very much like the Titanic, which is good because this is of course a model of the Titanic. So there we go. Happy with our progress today. Next week, next time, I will be making a start on the lifeboats, and of course they are a fairly key part of the Titanic and Titanic's story, so I've been looking forward to doing those for a while. Of course though, that is a fairly long-winded process. It's essentially copy and paste 14 times for the 30-foot boats, copy and paste 4 times for the 4 collapsibles and copy and paste twice for the 25-foot cutters. So that may be a long time coming because there's a lot of work in getting those lifeboats into a state I'll be happy with. But nonetheless, that'll be a nice little project. And then once we've got the lifeboats done, we'll move on to the davits and we'll get them installed. And then it really is on to finishing touches. So that is the end of the video for today. If you've got any questions, comments, what have you, pop them down below and I'll do my absolute best to get back to you. If you've enjoyed this video, do please like and or subscribe. If you haven't enjoyed this video, do please like and or subscribe. And I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.